Salutations and welcome to another episode of Amalfi Sports. And on this episode, we are going to be previewing the British Open. And I'm thrilled to be joined by another member of the Amalfi media family, Chase Pittman, who is one half of the co-hosts of the Amalfi podcast, Mundane Madness. And so just want to give a quick plug to let you know that you can get all of the great content for Amalfi Media on our website or on our YouTube channel, and you can find links to those in our episode notes. Now, for those of you who've watched my preview for the U.S. Open, the Masters, the PGA Championship, you know that I was joined by Joey DePinto. Well, Joey, he's got a lot of work going on. He's got a lot going on with Binge Bros and Nathaniel. So I'm thrilled to be joined by Chase here, joining me from Mundane Madness. And Chase, why don't you let the folks know a little bit about your podcast on Mundane Madness and maybe a little bit about your interest in the sport of golf as well?
Yeah, of course. So, like you mentioned, we do Mundane Madness over on Amalfi Media. It's me and my friend Cooper. We've been best friends for a very, very long time. Some would say too long. And so a lot of debates arise about the littlest stuff, and that's kind of what we do over there. If you ever wanted to talk about screws versus nails or LED light bulbs versus the regular light bulbs, that's kind of what we're going to be debating. So check it out if you're in for a good time. If you're passionate about the mundane, definitely give it a listen. I think it's a great time.
Absolutely. No, it's a blast. I love the topics you guys pick, and reminds me a lot. My father is a very, very opinionated man. And I remember, we would check out sometimes from the grocery store, and he would have very strong opinions about paper or plastic. And I mean, that's the sort of rhetoric and discourse I get on Mundane Madness, and I love it. It always brings a smile on my face.
Glad.
So, and of course, folks, if you've been watching this, you know that I'm also, aside from doing some of the sports stuff, also the host of From the Swamp to the Swamp, a political podcast that covers a variety of issues and interviews people from across the political spectrum. So if you're interested in politics, feel free to check out that out as well. But we have a lot going on in Amalfi Sports. Obviously, we're going to be previewing the British Open today, but we also have horse racing videos, competitive eating videos. We have NBA analysis. We have Major League Baseball breakdowns at the All-Star break. We got a lot of stuff here at Amalfi Sports, so make sure to subscribe and check out what we have to offer. So let's, before we dive into the British Open, which is, of course, this coming weekend, July 15 to 18 at Royal St. George Golf Club. But before we get into that, I wanted to take a step back and look at what took place at the U.S. Open and some of the developments over the last month, and get your, Chase, get your opinion. Since we didn't talk before the U.S. Open, I wanted to get your reactions to the U.S. Open. What were your big takeaways from that tournament leading into the British Open?
Yeah, so I think one of my biggest takeaways is that the heavy favorite won. I remember checking the odds and seeing that Rahm was by far and away the favorite. And as we know, golf, a lot of the times, it's pretty hard to pick the winner of a tournament. I think that most people who bet would say that as well. It's pretty hard to pick the exact winner, and Rahm did really well. I was also glad to see Morikawa step away. I heard you and Joey talk about that. He's a great golfer at that course. And I think the biggest news for me was Koepka. I think Koepka came out and performed. He has been struggling at these minor events throughout the year, but it's a major. Brooks Koepka will show up for the major. He's proved it time and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're so right about that. And it is amazing to see the split between his performance in majors and his performance everywhere else. I mean, it just seems like he just has another gear. And I know I've compared it a little bit to Tiger, where he just mastered his whole game around, I'm going to win majors. Now, Tiger won a whole lot of other tournaments on the way to winning those majors. Brooks doesn't do that quite as much, but it is all about the majors in his eyes, and you can see that by the way he performs. So absolutely. I had very similar takeaways to you. The final leaderboard had a lot of familiar names on it. And it's great to see those guys perform well. Of course, I had picked Jon Rahm to win the previous two majors. He did not. The time I did not pick him to win the major, that's when he decided to win. So I may need to just go back to that well one more time and never lose faith in Jon Rahm. So
that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Seriously. But you're right. It is really tough in terms of betting golf between the field versus, one particular golfer. I mean, anybody can get hot on a particular weekend, and picking that one name, even if they're an overwhelming favorite, even Tiger at the peak of his abilities, you would still take the field against Tiger, because it was, somebody's going to get hot. Somebody's going to, go really low on the weekend and shoot a 65 on a Saturday, and,
Hmm.
and kind of blow away you just never know. So it's a tough sport to predict sometimes, but we try to do our best here at Amalfi to at least give you a good information going into it. So, um, as I mentioned, we're going to be previewing the British Open, and it's at Royal St. George. And, British Open kind of usually rotates between the same 8 to 10 courses over a period of years. And so, Chase, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's your first memory of the British Open, and maybe what's your favorite memory of the British Open. It's a major that has, I think, a very special space in the minds of a lot of golf fans, and wanted to get your sense of what was something that stuck out to you first, and maybe a favorite memory as well.
Yeah, so I actually didn't start watching a lot of competitive golf early on in my sports fandom. I wasn't very good at golf. I'm still not very good at golf, and so it wasn't something I really connected with until about 2015. This time of golf is when I started to watch and kind of like, oh, this is fun. Believe it or not, people, golf is fun to watch. I promise. And specifically, and when Zach Johnson in 2015 came to the British Open and went to that playoff,
Hmm.
that was the first time I'd seen the British Open, and I just loved everything about that tournament. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was cool to see playoff golf down. Like, I mean, it is so a mentally tough sport
Hmm.
that going to a playoff, I can only imagine just playing the same hole over and over again, and whoever's going to step away. And so Zach really made that memorable for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, even though you've not been watching long, do you have a particular favorite memory from the British in those years that you've been watching since?
You know, I do. 2017 Spieth. I think a lot can be said about 2017 Spieth,
Yeah.
and I think watching him win was awesome. I'm a big Spieth guy. I like his swag. I liked all about, especially in 2017, and so seeing him win this big of a tournament was really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. No, he's a guy who you're right. That 2017 Spieth was a really special. That was a
Mhm.
special moment. I mean, that was a guy who was really at the peak of his powers at a very, very young age, and you thought, man, what could be? And it seems like he's getting back there, and that's exciting for the game to see him getting back to that position. So, not surprisingly, my first memories predate yours by almost 2 decades. I know you're not trying to make me feel old, you're succeeding. But the my first memory was Justin Leonard winning in 1997, and it's funny. Much like you, though, I didn't start watching the British early on in my fandom, and I think part of it was just the time delay, like watching it because it airs on the East Coast really early, and so I think I was just, I was a teenager, so I would sleep until noon, and
No,
by that point
exactly.
it's over, and so
Yeah.
and so I think that was part of it. But I really like Justin Leonard, and for those people who are my age or a little bit older, Leonard was this kind of scrappy golfer, probably best known for sinking about a 55-foot putt to win the Ryder Cup. The one year with absolutely hideous outfits. If you go back and watch those on YouTube, it is truly a '90s flashback in fashion. But him winning in '97 was really memorable, and then really, I think the most memorable one for me was 2 years later. And I don't know if it was a favorite because it was painful to watch, but John Van de Velde's meltdown in 1999, going to the last hole with a three-stroke lead and blowing it, and hitting it in the water, trying to get it out of the burn. And it was cringeworthy to watch him. And he sank a triple bogey putt to at least just tie. So he lost three strokes, and he actually ended up forcing a playoff and ended up losing in the playoff. And somebody said, one of the commentators said, he could go back and play that hole with a putter and do better. And I remember he actually went back that next year and played the 18th hole with a putter and got a six. And all he would have needed was a six, and he would have won. It was just one of the most epic meltdowns. I think people who are a little bit older than me probably remember some of the Greg Norman meltdowns, that he had early in his career and throughout his career. for me, the Van de Velde meltdown was just something else. And then maybe my favorite, because that's not favorite to watch somebody kind of collapse like that. But a favorite moment was Phil Mickelson winning in 2013. I'm just a big Phil guy. I love the swagger, much like you and Spieth. Love Phil's swagger. And he was a guy that we all were waiting for so long to break through. And when he won the Masters, and then to see him continue to win, and I didn't think he had a game to win the British Open, but he ended up doing it. That was really special to see. Um, so we talked a little bit about what we liked in terms of our past memories, but I was curious, Chase, what makes the British Open special or significant for you? What stands out for you in terms of the tournament?
It has just the British Open specifically has so much history. And it's like these big moments you talked about. Like again, I didn't watch golf as much as I do now until 2015, but I know of the meltdown. I know about like Phil's winning. I know about all these awesome moments, and there's so many more at this
Yeah.
course. Just the history, and it just feels classy, for lack of a better term. It just feels like this is the tours for the true gentleman of golf,
Yeah.
is the British Open. And so if you love golf for that reason, this is the tours. This is the reason you should go. Just the tradition, the history. I mean, I love it. It's a beautiful tours.
Yeah, it is. And much like you, I also just love, it's going back to the birth of golf, and it's going back home in some ways. And
It's coming home. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. They should play that, but yeah, it is. I love watching links golf. I think as an American, you don't see it that often. There are a couple of courses. I lived in North Carolina for a while. Pinehurst has a little bit of a links feel to it. It's not on the coast, but it's got that very sandy kind of, undulating feel. Joey and I talked that Kiowa had a little bit of a links feel to it, but most American courses are kind of trees on both sides of the fairways, very well manicured greens and fairways, very, pretty easy bunkers to get out of. Hitting it in the sand is not really that much of a penalty. The rough might be long, but isn't more than a couple of inches. You go over there, and it's like you're playing off of a parking lot or something like that. Like it's just
Absolutely.
yeah. Like everything's brown. Like not a lot's green,
Yeah.
and there's no trees anywhere on the course, which is kind of interesting because you watch guys who will just hit these massive hooks or slices, and it'll just go like over like three fairways, and they'll just be able to play back. It's not like they've lost their ball or anything like that. But so the courses themselves are just so interesting, so different to watch. The pot bunkers that they actually have to a lot of times hit out backwards to get out of because they're so deep you can't hit out of it. And then I just like the conditions as well. I love watching the, kind of the wind and the rain and how these guys deal with it. And you have to hit these low stingers, and there's all this, kind of stuff that goes into it. So, just a lot to love. And as I've gotten older and I wake up a little bit earlier, I actually now like the early tee times because
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
now when I wake up at 7 a.m., oh, great, the British Open's on. And I
There's
just,
sports early. Yeah. It's awesome.
right. Yeah. Now over by 1 o'clock, I can have a nice little Sunday, so,
Exactly.
not so bad, but, those are some of the things I love, but, ahead of, the British Open at Royal St. George this weekend, there are some storylines coming in. One of them is the travel and COVID restrictions that obviously is taking place in the United Kingdom. And this is, something the UK has been on lockdown several times over the last 18 months because of the pandemic. They have not been as willing to open up as much as the United States has. So even though you've seen crowds at Kiowa and at the other courses, you've not, over in the UK, they're a lot more restrictive there. They're limiting golfers to an isolated pod. Basically, they can only interact with three other people. Presumably, one of those is their caddy. Another one is probably like their swing coach or something like that, and maybe a family member at best. So it's very restrictive. Kevin Na, who's a pretty well-known American golfer, has already withdrawn due to those restrictions. We just saw a story the other day. A couple of more golfers have said they're bowing out for a variety of different reasons. So Chase, I was wondering, do you have any thoughts on some of those restrictions? Anything that's surprising to you about them, or any sense of how that might impact the tournament? Obviously, limited galleries as well around the course.
Yeah, I think. I think it's sad. Obviously, I'd rather see all the best golfers for the conditions because of the history. I mean, winning this tournament is such a big deal.
Hmm.
I personally, I get the UK's thoughts and trying to vaccinate, and four people into a pod for a weekend. I don't know if it's something I would pull out of the tournament for.
Right.
I think I'm trying to be in the zone anyways. I'm not going to go out with a whole lot of people. I think that just because there's a pod of four people doesn't mean you should bow out. And Kevin Na is not playing his best golf.
Right.
So I don't know if it's just to get his name out in the media to let people know that, hey, I'm still around
Yeah.
and I'm going to bow out of this tournament to show you, like, awesome, Kevin Na. I would be like, good for you, man. You're like 1,000 to 1 to win the tournament. Good job, Kevin Na. But I think that, like, if someone like Brooks or someone who
Mm.
Bryson, these bigger names, if they came out and said we're not going, that's a much bigger deal. But they wouldn't, because they want to
Yeah.
win. They love the course. And
Yeah.
it really just shows who really is a good golfer. And so I think the restrictions are there. It's not our call. It's probably not the golfing. It's probably not the course's call. It's just
Right.
what's going on in the country at the time. And so I think that go play some golf, go get in the zone. You and
Yeah.
your caddy can just share a meal and have some more bonding time. Bryson for sure needs that with his caddy.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. They're taking a break, and so yeah, he needs to
I
get
know.
he needs to get up to speed with his new caddy. And so you're right. He does need some time there, and you're right. Golf is such a solitary game. I used to play in high school, and yeah, I mean you don't need. It's not a team sport. You can just go out play by yourself as long as you'd like. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I thought the same thing, and I should note several Americans have already gone overseas and have been playing in the Irish Open and some of the other European tours the last couple of weeks. And so, just to be able to get over there, go through the quarantine process, get acclimated to things, get used to playing links golf. A lot of times, Americans try to go over, tune up a little bit before the British. So a lot of the top Americans are, Justin Thomas, Scotty Scheffler. A lot of these guys are already over there playing. So that's good to see. And like you said, the biggest names are all going to be there. I also will just point out that, and this is going to make, if there's any Brits who are listening to this, I'm sorry, because the weather actually looks like it's going to be nice. And I know the Brits,
Oh,
they hate it when the weather's nice. But it is the last time I saw, which I listen, I've visited England, and the expression is, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. And it changes quickly. But right now the forecast is showing for partly sunny skies every day and temperatures between 65 and 70 degrees. So this is, now granted, there could be a lot of wind. These courses are all on the coast, and so you do get a lot of wind coming in. Sometimes those winds will shift throughout the tournament. That can force holes to play a little bit differently. So certainly things are very variable, but right now the weather does not look that bad for the tournament. So we'll see, because that is a huge X factor when looking at who's going to play well and how people perform over the weekends. Is that you tend to, if the weather's not good, you do tend to, at least I tend to, favor the Europeans a little bit more because they're used to playing in those conditions than the Americans who used to 80 degrees and sunny all the time. So Chase, I wanted to turn things over to you a little bit to talk about perhaps how you handicap and how you kind of think about some of the betting for this. If people are interested in putting down a little bit of money and placing bets for the tournament, what are some of the factors you look for? What's the interesting things that you're taking into account?
so I think that the first thing I look for is who is playing hot. I think getting the hot hand is so important. That's why, for example, the U.S. Open, you talked about it some. Spieth was looking great and ended up finishing with a pretty good score at the U.S. Open. And so these guys who play in these smaller tournaments, you know who's feeling it, who's striking the ball well. And so that is what I usually look at. I also look at value.
Mm.
And so Rom being the heavy favorite doesn't provide a whole lot of good value unless, like you're saying, you just refuse to get beat by Rom again, because they could, like, I do not want to get beat by Rom again. So I could see betting the favorite there,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't give a whole lot of value at 9 to 1.
Hmm.
So I think you're looking for some of these guys, and we'll talk about it here in a second about the dark horses.
Hmm.
I think this is where you get your Tommy Fleetwoods,
Hmm.
your Hattons, your Cantlays, these 30-1, and they have a really good shot at winning the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So that is where I'd put my money. I'd for sure put it for them to finish top 10, top 20
Mm-hmm.
at a little bit better odds, but almost a guarantee that someone like Hatton is going to come up and be a top 10 player.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point to make, is that a lot of times when we talk about, we're trying to pick our winners or our top 3, but a lot of times when you're going into the betting areas, you can pick top 10, top 20 finishes.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily go, this guy's going to win. As we said, that's really tough to do. It's a little bit easier to go, I think this guy's going to be a top 5. I think this guy's going to be a top 10. And those are much more interesting bets, in my opinion, to take a look at. So let's make that transition to talking about the dark horses. So these are guys who we think, either may not have a lot of name recognition, or, particularly to American audiences, or maybe have not performed at the British Open before, but we think might be due. So Chase, who are a couple of your dark horses that you have this year in the British?
Yeah, so I have a few. The first, I don't really know if it's a dark horse, so I don't know where he would qualify, but Morikawa is a guy we've seen who's, I think, the best ball striker in golf right now. His irons are spectacular. And he's coming in opening at 40-1. So he is the guy. If I'm going to bet a top 10 finish, you're going to get really good odds on Morikawa. And he knows, he's playing with a lot of confidence as well. He just got selected to the U.S. Team for the Olympics. And so he's been on a press tour. He's feeling himself. He's ready. I would take Morikawa at those odds. I think Neiman is playing some of the best golf he's played in a very, very long time. It's 66-1 odds. He's looked good in these past couple tournaments. Neiman's a guy you could stick with. And then the South African Louis. He's not very pretty in front of the camera. Yeah, but he is for sure a guy who can knock the ball around a good bit. Yeah. He's for sure, he's my number one dark horse. I think that a lot of people are going to be surprised what they see from Louis. Probably a top 3 at worst.
So it's interesting. Louis, he might not be much to look at, but that swing is beautiful.
Oh my gosh, true.
It's the prettiest swing I've ever seen, and outside of maybe Ernie Els, the other South African. But he's experiencing this kind of renaissance to some extent. He's a guy who really fell off the map to American audiences for probably 5-6 years, and now has come back in the last 2 majors, performed very, very well, and is playing his best golf, his best consistent golf that I've seen maybe throughout his career. So I really like that. And I like Morikawa, and I agree with you that he's a dark horse in that we've never seen him perform at the British. And so it's a new environment for him. Let's see what he does. He a lot of times it takes American golfers maybe a couple of tries over at the British to get used to links golf, but you're right. He's so good at playing irons, and that's something you need to do. You need to be a good irons player at the British, because when that wind kicks up, a lot of times you have to leave your driver in the bag. You might have to leave your 3-wood in the bag, and you're hitting these low 2-iron stingers, and you look for those guys who are really solid iron players. So I like that pick a lot. I like, a guy that you mentioned before, Tyrell Hatton. Again, I think he's going off about 28-1. He's not a huge long shot, but he's a guy that I mentioned as a dark horse, only because I think American audiences really don't know him that well. But he's a guy that's been performing very well at several of the majors, getting, Chase, to your point, getting some of those top 10s, top 5s, being very consistent. So he's a guy that I just like to be there hanging around, English guy. So he's going to be, I think, up there. The other name that I've come to like, and it's, again, a little bit more of a top 10 finish sort of thing. I don't think he'll win, but Christian Bezuidenhout from South Africa. I really like him. He's a guy who just kind of popped up on the radar over the last 18 months. And again, he's just like always on the leaderboard. And it's just like at the end of the tournament, I'm like, there's that guy again. All right. Just on the front page of the leaderboard, top 10. Another South African. I like him there. And he's going off at about a 66-1, around the same as Neiman, I believe. So really good money, really good odds there. So I like Bezuidenhout, who my dad refers to as Gesundheit because he can't pronounce his last name. So we're getting, so it's a little bit of a new name for people to get accustomed to, but I think he's going to be around for a while as a guy who you have to pay attention to. So those are some of our dark horses. let's transition into some of our favorites. And so, Chase, I'll turn things over to you. Who do you have? Who do you think your top three are going to be, or who do you think are the three most likely names who are going to end up holding the claret jug at the end of the weekend?
Right, and so my dark horses, I like the younger guys. So Neiman's 22,
Mm.
Morikawa's early 20s. I like those guys because they have a lot of energy. But the favorites are the guys who've been doing it for a long time. I mean, you got your John Rahms, you got Brooks Koepka, who has just been dominating majors. We've seen it over the past 5 years, 10 years, or 5, 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then Xander. Can't say his last name very well. Schauffele is what
Yeah.
I call him.
Yeah.
Big Xander guy. I think those three guys are who you're looking at to walk away with the championship. I think that they are so poised. They're ready for the moment. They've been here before. I think all three of them present really good opportunities to walk away with a win.
I agree with you. Rom is over there. Rom's been playing really well the last couple of weeks too in the European, like
Yeah.
the Irish Open and the European tournament this week. He was up in second place the last time I looked. So yeah, he's playing well. Brooks, I can't argue with you about that at all. And Xander, I like as well. I mean, he's gotten a lot of second place finishes, a lot of close finishes. So he's a guy I expect to also be up there. So like you, I like John Rahm. I learned my lesson. I went away from him one tournament. That's the one he wins. I'm going right back to John Rahm.
Exactly.
So I'm not screwing around here. And I tend to like European players in the British Open. Rahm, of course, even though he played his college golf at Arizona State, is from Spain. And so I really like him. The other guy I like, who is probably a dark horse, I don't think he'll win, but I do think he'll get in the top three, is Tommy Fleetwood.
Good pick.
I just really like Tommy Fleetwood a lot as a golfer. And I think he's a guy who, if anybody's ever watched him, he has the same ability. If anybody's watched the Masters and they watched Hideki Matsuyama go on that 9-hole run where he just went like 7 under par over 9 holes and just blew away the field basically and just put the tournament away. Tommy Fleetwood is that same type of golfer. He can do that exact same thing. When he gets hot, watch out. Like, he is a guy who can go 7 under over 9 holes and shoot a 64, 65 and just blow away the field. And so I really like Tommy Fleetwood. I like his style. He's a very streaky golfer, both for good and bad. But when he's on, man, he's on. And he's been playing very well, too, over the European Tour. And then the one American I'll throw out there is Justin Thomas. I like JT. And the reason I like him is he's actually playing over in Europe right now, and he's playing quite well on some of those tours, the tournament that's taking place this weekend over in Europe. So, he's up there on the leaderboard. He's an American who, again, good irons player. I tend to trust those types of guys. And so I think, he's a name that will pop up there. But I do think there's the potential for Rahm to win back-to-back majors and be the guy to take home the claret jug this year. But should be just a wonderful tournament at Royal St. George. Can't wait to see it. Chase, any final thoughts about the British Open, what you're looking forward to or what you hope to see over the weekend?
Yeah, so I'm really just looking forward to see some good golf. I mean, I think we're watching some of could be great golfers like of all time. I think we're looking at big names who are just now hitting their prime. Like you said, Rahm is only, he's 26, which to me is old, but is your prime. I mean, he is the athletic prime at 26. You got Brooks and DeChambeau, which I want to see them paired together. I hope it happens now. I just want one time to see them paired together and give the people what they want. And then I think I'm just in for a good tournament. I hope that I actually hope it rains. I want to see the nastiest conditions playable and watch the tournament take place.
Well, I have my weather app. So people who follow golf, Royal St. George is in the town of Sandwich. You got to love that. It is in Sandwich, England. And unfortunately, the weather is still unchanged. Sunny and clear between 65 and 70 the whole time. But hey, wait 5 minutes, that could change. So we will see.
Exactly.
But like you, just hoping for a great tournament. And also, I will just say you have done an outstanding job at making me feel very old, as you referred to a 26-year-old as being old, and I'm only 14 years older than that person. So that is all right, though. Otherwise, Chase, I had a great time chatting with you about the British Open today. This was a lot of fun, and look forward to doing more Amalfi Sports stuff with you, and for you to contribute to Amalfi Sports, because you got a lot of sports takes that you want to share too with folks out there. So be on the lookout for his content. And again, make sure to check out Mundane Madness. So thank you so much for everybody for tuning in to the Amalfi Sports preview of the 2021 Open Championship. We hope that you enjoyed the video, and remember to subscribe and get more great content from the Amalfi Media YouTube channel. And like I said, check out Chase's podcast, Mundane Madness, coming out every Wednesday, and From the Swamp to the Swamp, with new episodes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Until next time, for Chase Pittman, I'm Matthew DeSantis saying so long, and thanks for tuning in to Amalfi Sports.